and welcome to the Improvisors podcast. I'm Kevin James, and this is my co-host, Neil Thomas.
Thank you, Kevin. In this podcast, we talk with improvisers about improvising, about their inspiration and their reflections and their aspirations. Who are we talking with today, Kevin?
Neil, we've got Pauline Sherlock. Pauline speaks about riding the monster of stage fright, karaoke when you need it, things left unsaid are poison in your head, finding voice, and the benefits and challenges of hypervigilance.
And the glorious topic of rivers and riverbanks. Good morning, Pauline.
Good morning.
Good morning. So wonderful. We're just loving seeing you on Zoom.
Well, I'm loving seeing me on Zoom too.
Let's just dive straight into the podcast and ask you, how did improvisation start for you? When and how and why?
Well, I think, like as most children, I think it began with playing games. You know, like I spent a lot of time alone as a child, even though I had a big family of 5 brothers. I spent a lot of time alone, and I often, made up stories with the toys, and I used to walk to primary school from the age of about 5 by myself and come home for lunch. And in between was my favorite time, going home to the school, because I'd walk through the park and walk down the street, and I would make up all sorts of stories and things along the way, and replicate movies that I'd seen with the now inappropriate cowboys and Indians sort of thing. And but children with guns, so that was I was quite a tomboy as well. So I think I sort of feel like that's the birth of it, when we are children, and then you get on with life, and that stuff starts to be replaced by going to work and so on. But I came back to it probably. I think I always wanted to do performing. I always wanted to, but I just didn't know how to make it my way in there, And in my early 20s, I had a go at it. I did a little bit of study at TAFE, and I had a go at I used to go watch the theatre sports, and I really enjoyed theatre sports. That was great to watch. And I had a go at it a couple of times, but I was, got good feedback, and it seemed like it was a good thing for me. But I suffered so badly from stage fright. I basically shit myself, to be honest, both emotionally and physically. Before a performance, I would, come out of both ends, and I sort of stopped doing that then, and I went traveling, and I went and lived in Japan for a while, and then coming back to it again was after the children were a little bit older, and I started doing comedy. I started doing stand-up comedy, and I realized that everything comes from improvising. Everything, all the material that you have for your stage performance, all the material that I put into my monologues, all comes from an improvisation. And for me especially, I very rarely sit down to figure out something. Something pops in, pop, and then that's it. I have to write it down, and then things flow from that. That's often the way my stand-up comedy works. But again, I tended to only replicate it on the stage for performance. And it wasn't really until I started doing the clown work and I did some improvising classes with Improv Melbourne, I think they were. And so from there, but with the clown work, it's very intense improvising, very And I think I sort of broke through that stage fright thing. It still comes and goes. It's never really killed that monster, that stage fright monster. But you learn how to ride it, I guess. You learn how to ride it when on the stage. So yeah, so that's sort of how that happened.
Pauline, the stage fright, I've watched you quite a lot performing, and stage fright doesn't show so much at all now. How wonderful. I want to list a few things. Pauline Sherlock, actor, musician, singer, stand-up comedian, clown, voiceover artist, and improviser. In acknowledgement of your sort of wide range of capacities. But I guess you've just said a moment ago that improvising sits somehow at the heart of everything you do. Could you talk a little bit more about how improvising sort of informs these other areas? And is improvising for you something to do with being available in the moment and on the go to generate material and be responsive?
Yes, that's a lot in that question. Well, well, yes, improvising. Well, I think the first thing to come to is to realize, the moment you realize that you are improvising your life, that life is an improvisation. I think the moment that realization comes, you realize that you are the chooser. That's not to say you're the only chooser. Everyone around you is also choosing, and the world and society, and then you've been given so much layers of conditioning since you were a child. So all of that stuff influences the way you choose to improvise your life. But when you realize that, it's a valuable moment, I think. Well, you know, it's not a moment, it's a continuum. See, that's the thing about being present, being in the now. Well, where is the now? Where is it? Oh, it's gone again. Oh, it's gone. Oh my God, the now just keeps moving. It won't stop, my heavens. So we're always sort of trying to get a hold of where the now is, you know, where the present. How do you be present? You know, I'm present when I'm talking to try to be present when I'm talking to my children. That's a thing, to listen to what they have to say, and when people are talking to me too, because I can sometimes run off on my own agenda and be too concerned with myself. Pretty much always, you know. Most people are. I'm not the only one. Most people are, and so I'm not the only one. So figuring out where being present is to understand that we are in a continuum, that life is a continuum. It's a continuum of motion, from our birth to our death, you know, and then it continues all over the sides of that for everyone else and for the world. And, you know, and it's like this huge, what is it, 5D? Kevin, you'd know about that stuff, wouldn't you? 5D, it's a 5D funny looking thing with all sorts of boxes and lines and weird things in it. 7D, I've been informed. So, you know, it's like this incredibly multidimensional space we are in. And I like to look at it as like performing is like getting in a river. So when in general life, because we're so protected in society, like our society anyway, we're very protected. So we don't really live in real time. We sort of live in this time of our own making. So I'm protected. I can walk on a footpath and not get run over by a car. There are crossings, all this stuff protecting me from being killed in my society. So I'm sort of not really in danger generally. There is danger, of course, but it's different than somebody who's living a subsistence life on a farm, or someone who's in a village somewhere where they may have to worry about animals coming in and getting them, or someone who's in a war. They are really living in real time. Every moment could be their last, and they really are in that process. So we, as in our society, we step out of the river. Most of the time our life is spent, on the shore, watching the river go by. And when we perform, you get in the river. You get in the river, and you're really experiencing a sort of a real-time moment, especially when you do it with improvisation. If you're doing it with pre-prepared work, you sort of didn't really get in the river to do it. You did it on the side of the bank and worked it out, and then you practiced it, and then you got in the river, and now you are improvising practice pre-prepared work, but it's still not quite the same thing. But if you get in the river to do an improvisation, you are, as close to real-time performing as you can be, I think. And so you're getting on that stage, everyone's watching you, you don't know what's to come any more than they do. There are, of course, zones that you might favor, that you will go into your own patterns maybe, and you will bring up issues that you like. I tend to be in a philosophical, theatrical style. It's very common for me to talk about issues that relate to my life, and then go into a philosophical, maybe political sort of rant. Sometimes it's a rant, sometimes it's an exploration, but that will often be a certain pattern of style that I will go into. But then sometimes it's like a completely off the wall, unexpected thing that I have no idea is going to come out. But while it is in real time and it is improvised, it's still coming from my learned experiences, the training I've done in theatrical work, my understandings of how to craft a piece that I've learned through my trainings with, I've had some great teachers, and so that's how I come to it now, mostly, especially in the performance, like having learned from people from the Al Wonder line, coming through Nick Pappas and Andrew Morish. So and doing the practices, that there is the regular practice Monday that we have, and throughout the year there are several practice sessions, and in those sessions I've found that there's a certain freedom that comes to release your mind onto the stage that nothing can replicate. Nothing of all the performances, things that I've done, this is the one that gives the best spark, that feels like you're on the edge of it. And often in the improvising world, they call things edge, precipice, all of the words that you might fall off. So that feeling is very invigorating, and it also can be calming if you've had a chance to have several improvisations in a day. It can be quite calming, the second or third one. The first one can be, and then the next ones can be, I can float in the river now. I don't have to be swimming like a crazy person. Sometimes I swim like a crazy person and love it, and sometimes I just like to float along. Yeah. But a lot of the material that I use in my other performings happen in that sort of way, but it's not in the river. It's generally on the river bank, at home with myself, or walking along the street. I do a lot of creation along the street, walking. Walking's a wonderful place for ideas to come. So yeah. So did I answer that question?
Definitely. I was I love the metaphor of the river and getting in and out of the river, and I was sort of pondering around the perhaps different states of consciousness we might arrive at and I kind of think you're articulating around that. I was wondering whether a scripted performance mightn't be a bit like taking a boat out into the river. And some oars.
Well, you know, you could be going up shit creek in a barbed wire canoe.
So my question might be, or would you be happy to rant around the idea of different rivers, perhaps, or different ponds,
different states of consciousness?
Yeah, and maybe relate that to audiences. So that the practice, the audience that's present in a practice, how that differs from an audience, a stand-up comedy audience, and I'd sort of venture something like the practice audience is very, very warm and accepting and open and present, and the stand-up comedy audience might be quite savage and quite demanding, and they've paid to be at this, so they want something delivered. So perhaps, well, definitely more robust and perhaps critical. And so maybe range across those, but also I'm interested to know how you navigate those, jumping from one pond or lake or river to the other.
Well, yes, and even in all the forms, even the practice form and the stand-up comedy form, there are different riverbanks. I think maybe you're in the river, and then there's different riverbanks as you go by, different collections of people on the riverbank watching you as you go by, and you think, oh, I've chosen the wrong oar for this riverbank, you know, something like that. But like, because even in stand-up comedy, a lot of the audiences, depending on where you're going, you know, what you're doing, a lot of open mic circumstance, people there's like a mixture of people as well. It's so very complex. You might get an audience where everyone is just going to let you fail, and they're never going to, they're not going to be savage at all. They're warm and welcoming and allow you to be whatever you are. And even when it's really bad, they will not leave or anything. They're very weighty. They're waiting for the good stuff, you know. They know they heard you do a good joke, so maybe there's going to be more. So they'll wait through some shit, you know. They'll wait through it, and Australian audiences tend to be rather good at that. They tend to be quite, if someone's bothering to come out to see a thing, and as long as it's framed, you know, set in its in the conditions that they have expectation. I think a lot of things is about expectation in all forms of life. How you expect things to turn out will determine how you might react to things, you know. So if you go to see a seasoned performer and you've come to see his best work, it's a big show, and he starts mucking around doing, you know, some playing with stuff that's not very good, or he's drunk, or he's not bothered, you know, he seems to be phoning it in, then your expectation is that he's going to be great and you're going to have a wonderful time. So you'll be disappointed. So therefore, you know, that's cracked it, you know, so you're going to have the shits with them, you know. But if they are giving you, they've put new show trial, you know, trying out new stuff, you go to that with the expectation of some crap, you know, some untried out stuff, you know, so you're going to be more relaxed in the watching. And so when I, as a performer, I keep those things in mind and try to understand what the expectation is. And the practice audience, yes, they because their expectation is that this is, you know, improvised from scratch. They probably have seen this before, so they recognize that there will be a movement of the more polished and not polished. They have an awareness, and they have an awareness that some magic might happen, you know, because sometimes there is such a magic that can't be replicated or explained in any other form, you know. So because it is solely relating to the space that you're in. So and the people that are there for that night. So any interaction you have with an audience member, that audience member is there for that night only. So you and the position they're in and all of the different little intricacies is all happening in that space at that time. And most of the practice audiences are aware of that, unless they haven't seen it before, of course. Then they might have a different expectation. But yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to the expectation, what a person is expecting when they go to see something. So a lot of the audiences that I work with, it tends to be quite independent, somewhere between the very, very practiced and experienced, you know, professional sort of thing, and the, you know, beginner open mic. I live in there somewhere, and in the middle there, and from time to time it might be a snazzy place, and I you know, have to bring the thing to the table. You know, I've done a few clown performances like that, and the expectation is higher, and you've got to be on the ball. And so in those circumstances, I will have a lot of the material. I will have a lot of ideas and material ready that I know works, that I know is fabulous, hits straight away. And then I just have those as signposts over a space of however long I'm given. And then when you have the set times, so if you have a set time of 5 minutes or a set time of 10 minutes, you have to have some idea of how you're going to navigate through that in order to finish on time. Because in most places you don't want to go over time, because you're ruining that for the rest of the performers. You don't want to be greedy. You might be able to go a little bit over time, and you don't want to go too under time, because then you are not giving your supply. You're not doing your supplying your product efficiently. So you want to, you know, try to be as close to that time as possible. So you need to have a certain amount of preparation and understanding of where the timings will go. So in those sort of where you're getting paid money, you know, in those forms, you want to be a bit more. I learned the word lazzi from my clown teacher, Giovanni Fusetti, who comes from Italy every year. And when I learned clown, I learned a lot about theatrical structure as well. And the term lazzi means a theme or an idea or a sort of a set of scheduled things that are then improvised between. So the theme of masturbation, that's one of my favorites. But like, you know, the theme of that, and then I might have points that I will go between, and I'll improvise in between to get to the spots that I want to. And so you can use that in virtually everything you do. You can use it in everything you do. Have some very good, strong points strong bits of material, like a little bit of a song or certain jokes or certain things, and then work your way between them depending on what happens in the room. So the reaction of an audience member to something I say, because I interact with the audience a lot, especially in my character work. So the reaction of that audience member, like, I don't know if you remember, Kevin, I did my clown act, and she asks one of the audience member to marry her. And Kevin kindly said maybe when he saw me doing that. So yeah, so depending on the reaction, like some people say no and some people say yes, so maybe they said yes, so now I'll have a stylized wedding in my performance now because they've said yes. So who knows what will happen depending on the reaction. So you might not need half of your material, because the magic comes from the audience, and depending on the circumstance, depending on the environment, like the open mic to the big stage, the expectation is how I would generally gear my work, what the expectation of the audience and the person is booking me.
Great. Pauline, I'd like to just push the boat out into another direction, or maybe the leaf we're floating on or whatever, but there's something about the content of what you do and the way you're able to inhabit performatively domains that sit on the edge of acceptability, where you're willing to sort of push agendas, concepts in a very uninhibited way. So there's something you particularly are able to sort of perform on that edge and take risks that I see nobody else quite doing. Would you comment a little bit on that, on how you're able to sort of inhabit material, explore material, and explore the less spoken of socially acceptable things?
Well, okay. Well, I think this is that thing where Neil says, you don't know what you think until you say it. Well, I don't know what I think, but I think it's because I think I spent a lot of my life not saying this is sort of this is an untrue thing as well. Like a lot of our life is spent not saying things in the fear of hurting someone's feelings or disrupting something or getting kicked out of the group or upsetting someone. However it is, we spend a lot of our life navigating status, navigating authority, navigating Pauline, shut up. Pauline, that's enough from you, Pauline, and I spent in my childhood, sometimes I would deliberately decide I was not going to talk. I won't talk now for 3 days because people had told me to shut up or whatever. And I said, then you'll miss me, because we do have to learn how to moderate our speech as well, because it's not always a bad thing that you moderate yourself. I don't always say what I think. I do say a lot of what I think, but I do try to moderate it and understand what the reaction is going to be, and try to moderate it in a positive manner. But sometimes you really want to say the thing you want to say. It's just a thing that's been bothering you, or a thing that is going on in the world, or some feeling of oppression or suppression, and you just really need to have it out. And if it doesn't come out, it will sit in there and make you sick. That's my view on this. I once wrote a song that said, things left unsaid are poison in your head. So there's things that, like, and especially me, because I think I'm not sure if it's if it's just a human condition or if it's a me condition, but I ruminate a lot. So I capture someone's words or my own behavior, and then it goes round in my head like crazy. And until I get it out, until I can self-regulate as well. I am able to, go, oh, okay, I think that's not important. I think that's you're making a mistake there. But you have to get information to regulate these thoughts, and some of that is to get it out in a conversation, or especially if I have a problem with somebody, I want to have real, genuine friendships. I want to have real, genuine relationships with people. So if there's something going on that that is not healthy for us, I would like us to have that discussion about it, just to figure it out. That's if we're having a friendship. If we're just having an acquaintanceship, well, I don't need to talk about that stuff. But you don't know until you get there. You don't know whether someone's a friend or an acquaintance until you get to the point where you actually do that conversation, So when I'm working, especially in improvising, well, in everything I do, really, it is trying to express and say the genuine issue of my existence, my search for understanding of what we live for in this world. What's the point? What's the point of life? I'm not a religious person. I don't believe in like the one true God thing. I'm quite adverse to that thing. But I do think that we have like some sort of shared energy between the humans and the world and the existence, whatever that is. I don't, it's defined in quantum physics and in the Eastern philosophies. It's been tried to define for thousands of years since the beginning of human existence. So that's sort of what I'm searching for, and things that are pertinent to me, especially like, as I'm getting older, there are things that I love to talk about, the things that people don't talk about: menopause, masturbation, love, unrequited love, relationship issues, feminism, masculinism, all of the things that affect our daily life, but we don't look at because we're so busy with everything else as well. And so I like to put that on the stage, and it oozes out of me. I don't have a choice. I don't really have a choice. It oozes out anyway. So.
Wow. Is it my turn to ask a question? I think it might be. Great. So much to ponder. Thanks, Pauline. There's so much to ponder. So much interesting material. I enjoying listening to you greatly. One thing that I'm curious about is, well, it's a multi-pronged question, but around your voice and how wonderful and strong and brilliant your vocal projection, etc., is, and your singing is so beautiful. So I'm wondering, and I had this idea that singing requires release in that act of singing, and I was wondering whether has singing always been a part of your life, and how that came about? How come you're such a great singer?
Well, this one makes me cry because it is my first love. Singing is my first love, and it's the thing that I always grip onto to hold my sense of confidence. Like when things aren't going good, oh, well, at least I can sing. It's nice. It's sort of it allows me to anticipate a future as well, you know, to think, well, I can now go out to an open mic night or karaoke, and that will make me, you know, allow me that release. As you say, that release, singing is a very important release for me, especially if I haven't been performing for a while. I have to really go out and do a karaoke or something, you know, just to just to release that beast. And it is great to sing at home all by myself, and I really enjoy doing that. But there's nothing that you know, you need. I don't know what it is exactly. Is it? It might be that narcissist thing or whatever, but it's community as well, and it's there is a state of the human that requires affection from outside, you know, that requires that it's not only me who thinks this is good, you know, I sort of want some confirmation of myself. And I think that's just a human desire. It's natural, of course, because we live in relationship to each other all the time since we're babies, you know, with our mothers and so on. So so from when I was quite young, I used to sing alone. I wouldn't sing in front of people very much because I was afraid that it wasn't good. And I was afraid that even though I enjoyed it and thought it was lovely, I was afraid that someone would, you know, not like it. And when I did sing in front of people, I got both sides of it. Like I would get praise from somebody, but then there would be the one who says, "Don't give up your day job," and you know, like, "You think you can sing, do you?" You know, and they would pierce my heart. And no matter how much praise you receive, when someone gives you that, that's the thing that sticks there. And so it was like one of the main things. I would have loved to have been a singer from quite a young age, but the heart piercing, and that was probably part of the reason I had the stage fright. That's where, because I'm constantly on the alert. Oh, they hate me. They don't like it. So, and I think I do have this state of I don't know, I wouldn't call it paranoia as such, but like alert, this state of hypervigilism. I think it comes also from having a scattered childhood and I come from a bit of abuse as well, and it was quite looking back on it at the time. It was just, you know, it was just living life, you know. But looking back on it, I realized there's a lot of trauma that was there that leaves me with a state of hypervigilism. So I have a quite astute awareness, and that the bad side of that. So when I'm working as a performer, that the astute awareness is wonderful because I can interact with the audience and so on. But the other side of that is worried that people are hating me. People, oh, they hate it. They think I'm shit. Do they think I'm shit? So that's the, you know, the two sides of the coin, and so it can interfere with me. So with the singing, I made my own judgments along the way to say, no, I'm a good singer. It's all right. I'm a good singer. And then I received enough confirmation to say, oh, okay, you are. But it wasn't really until just a few years ago that I buddied up with a friend called Bill Verhagen, who plays the guitar beautifully. And it wasn't until I really buddied up with him and we did a lot of work together and did a lot of busking and all sorts of things. And the lovely mirroring we both had for each other enhances our confidence because I trust his opinion and he trusts mine. So when we're telling each other we're good, and then we're trying to improve and telling each other where the bad things are, we then get this fantastic working relationship that enhances both of our confidence in the performance, you know. So I feel much more at ease nowadays just to sing, and I love singing. It's just a beautiful thing to do, and it's very, I think everyone should do it. And a lot of people are still stuck in that zone of don't give up your day job, you know, and you know, still hearing those voices in their ears, you know, and some teacher who said, you sing up the back there, but don't sing, just open your mouth and pretend, you know. Like, people have had their desires to sing thwarted throughout their lives, and then they just have that voice now, and that interferes with their ability to just let it out, you know. You know, in villages and, you know, the variety of indigenous societies, everyone sang. They might have had somebody who shone, but they tended to take turns in shining, you know, like, and then they would all sing together, and it'd be all like, you know, and then people would have their turn at being the one who does that song, or someone might be better than everyone, but still everyone's still joining together. And I think that that's a really good thing. But it's not the same as being on a stage. Of course, if you're going to be on a stage and people are going to pay money to come and look at you, you want to be, you know, at the top of your craft in that sort of thing. It's again, it's the expectations. You go to a musical open mic or a karaoke, you are getting what you expect, you know. So I think a lot of that comes down to that. One thing I did want to say was with relation to teachers, because I've had some of the best teachers, and in particular, I recently worked on a show with Yumi Umi Umare, and we worked through this process of improvising the show into existence. You know, this crazy, wild, seemingly chaotic environment is so well structured and directed from all the individuals who come, and we do improvising, and we make this material. And then on the night of the performance, we also put it together, and it is still an improvisation, even though we have organized it. And Yumi Umare is a master at this process, and it was really wonderful. I do also want to say that most of the work that I do, I am able to because of the wonderful teachings of Yumi, Giovanni Fussetti, Andrew Morrish, and Nick Pappas. Nick Pappas, the quiet genius. If you ever get a chance to do his classes, do his classes.
Speaking of stage, I think we're going to have to stage left or stage right or something, but we're going to need to draw this.
That big hook is going to come and pull me out.
We need to draw this this remarkable podcast to an end, and there's so many things we haven't had a chance to talk about, such as your doctorate, etc., etc. But no chance now.
They say leave them wanting more, Kevin.
Pauline, thank you so much for this morning. It's been such rich pickings. I want to just say something. You spoke of voice before, Neil and Pauline, but I think you, Pauline, are one of the most substantial voices around in the improv world, one that's less restricted, less inhibited, and willing to dive off and into places that others fear to venture, I think. So thanks for chatting about us. Thanks for being you. And keep on keeping on. Over to you, Neil.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks so much, Pauline. There's nothing more I can say. Thank you so much. Bravo for you.
Thank you so much. I've had a lovely time. Now I'll have to go off and ruminate over all of those answers. And